Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law. And it appears that we have a verdict in the Delphi murder trial, a trial that got a lot of press. Unfortunately, cameras were not in the courtroom, and cameras will not be in the courtroom today. So we're not going to actually see the verdict be announced, but we will hear about it as soon as it comes down. And there appears to be a verdict. The jury has been deliberating for 4 days. And there is a lot of sketchy things about this case, to be sure. There's not a lot of great evidence, it seems, based on secondary reporting against Richard Allen. So, based on the secondary reporting, it seems like not guilty is the correct verdict. This frustrates me on a personal level just because I'd like to be able to see it so I can render my own independent judgment, but I can't do it because I can't see it, which was really annoying. Right? I'd like to be able to see the thing and be like, oh, here's what I think. But I can't do that because I can't see the thing because it's not televised. So I'm just annoyed. And so we're just going to be able to see what's going on down this case. So we shall see as it progresses. But the evidence against him is kind of thin. And the confession that came only after he was held in solitary in prison, which is kind of suspect. Now, being sent to prison awaiting trial is pretty weird in and of itself. Normally, you don't do that unless the person's already serving time in prison. So you might do it in that circumstance. So if the person's already serving time in prison and they're, such a danger that the local jail is insufficient, then, you might be able to do it then. But this guy hasn't been convicted of anything until, maybe later today. So it's really, really odd to send someone to prison as opposed to jail when when you're simply awaiting a decision. And then put him in solitary beyond that is also pretty weird. Although that could be for protective custody reasons, to be fair to the prison. That could be because there's such a threat against him. So it could be a security measure for his own security. That could be a potential motivation. But it's odd. And then him giving this confession to the police after being held in solitary in this prison situation. It's like, that's a pretty coercive environment. And so as you're looking sort of in your mental mind, right, as you're looking to the confession and you're thinking, is it voluntary? Is it intelligent? Is it knowing, right? Is it a voluntary, intelligent, knowing confession? And you see these coercive elements against it. You're like, I don't know, man. Seems like that might be a little suspect. I'm not so sure about that voluntary aspect. Not so sure it's completely voluntary. Plus, the lead investigator, as I understand from Andrea Burkhart, shout out Andrea, kind of collapsed on the stand. Plus, there's not really great evidence. Plus, there's a trail cam, which kind of seems to suggest that it's not him. Plus, the descriptions of Bridge Guy don't really seem to line up with him. So the eyewitnesses who described Bridge Guy, he doesn't seem to match those descriptions. So I'm not saying he didn't do it. I am saying the evidence against him based on secondary reporting is pretty thin. So it seems like not guilty is probably the correct version. But again, I'd really wish I could see the thing because then I could render an independent decision, which I can't do because I can't see the thing and I'm just annoyed. But we're going to see what the jury thinks after 4 days of deliberation. 4 days of deliberation, suggests that they really thought about it. It suggests not guilty is probably more likely, all things on balance. But we'll see. We'll see. Oh, apparently they found him guilty on all counts. Law and Crime is saying. Apparently he was found guilty on all counts. Well, that kind of sucks. Apparently it's guilty across the board. That seems questionable based on secondary reporting. But then again, I'm not really in a position to second guess the jury because I didn't see the thing. And all I have is secondary reporting, which is just annoying. There's plenty of appeals fodder. There's probably some appeals fodder, to be sure. But of course, appeals are for losers. So you should never bank on an appeal. Yeah, apparently guilty across the board. Well, okay. That sucks. Well, they're still not saying what the verdict is, but people in the chat are saying guilty based on Twitter reports. Let's see if they say anything.
Bob, can you hear me? He can't hear me. Everyone's being very orderly, very under control. So you're not reading anyone. I mean, they were told to act in a very orderly fashion. If you're just joining us, the verdict has been reached. The verdict has been delivered. We are just waiting to deliver it to you, ladies and gentlemen. And maybe we could tell our camera guy just to grab Bob Motta right now. He's gone.
If there's a press conference, we'll watch
Barbara
that.
To come over. Barbara McDonald.
I imagine there'll be a press conference from somebody.
Again, what's termed a pool reporter, meaning she has responsibilities to the entire media to deliver that verdict, and then she will walk promptly over to us.
Okay, there's Alex Perez with ABC.
And I was trying to see if any family members had come out of that front door, and I did not see any. Did you, Ted? I mean, it happened very quickly.
I did not. If our camera guy can hear us, the guy right in front of him right now is Alex Perez with ABC. He was just told what the verdict was. I saw him typing it away.
If you're just joining us, ladies and gentlemen, we are seconds away from finding out the verdict in the Delphi murders case, waiting for our producer, Barbara McDonald, who may be answering some questions right now. Here she is. She's here. You'll watch TV. This is live television. You got to zoom in. We focus. We'll get her microphone on, and she will deliver this verdict at this moment. She's got to put in her earpiece. She likely does not even realize that she is on the air right now. She's dialing in. I'm giving you behind the scenes stuff, folks. She's dialing in so she can hear me as we get ready for this verdict to be delivered. The question is, did this jury find Richard Allen responsible for the absolutely brutal murders of these two young girls, best friends who were there for one another at the moment some monster decided to take their lives?
Yeah, that doesn't look really promising, does it? That doesn't look super promising for a not guilty, does it?
Just about ready.
That doesn't look super promising for a not guilty verdict.
Putting on the microphone.
Yeah, unless that's old footage. Unless that's not footage that happened today.
Those are not live pictures.
Oh, they're not live. Oh, okay. I was like, if that was live, that would be a pretty strong indication.
So,
yeah, that'd be a pretty strong clue.
Let's keep it live so we can see what's happening. So the folks at home, we can take them behind the curtain. We can take them behind the curtain today. And there's Barbara McDonald. I don't know if Barbara, can you hear me?
Not yet.
She's not hearing me yet.
Barbara's in her own little world right now. Barbara's busy.
Barbara, can you hear me? Okay. She can't hear. Okay. If we can maybe just tell.
Why would they pick that time for B-roll? I was like, that was very deceptive B-roll. That's not fair.
She can't hear me. I don't know if she's having a problem. Look it up. Here we go. All right, folks, get ready. We're about to deliver you the verdict in the Delphi murders case. Barbara McDonald, Court TV senior producer, on the ground, was inside for everything. Barbara, we've been waiting for this moment. Please deliver the verdict.
Guilty on all 4 counts, unanimous by this jury. The defense did ask to have the jury polled. They all affirmed that that was, in fact, their verdict. Guilty of 4 counts of murder, 2 counts of felony murder against Abigail Williams and Liberty German, 2 counts of intentional murder against Abby and Libby. Sentencing will happen on the 20th of December. The judge is setting aside all day. I can tell you when we got into the
Spoiler alert,
courtroom
it's
about
life.
10 minutes till 2, it was somber. Very quiet. Nobody was talking. The room was filled with members of law enforcement, Indiana State Police, the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. Abby and Libby's families were already inside the courtroom when the media was
Spoiler alert, the sentence
and
is life.
the
Maybe
Allen
times
family
2.
was not present. The media members came
Plus
in, took their
years.
seats. There were 14 seats available to the members of the general public. They were then brought in. Bradley Rosie and Jennifer Auger from the defense team were not in the courtroom. Richard Allen was. He was standing at the beginning talking with his defense attorney, Andrew Baldwin. The judge came in just after 2 o'clock and asked where Mr. Baldwin, or rather where Mr. Rosie and Jennifer Auger were, and the judge entered at 2:11, according to
Juries
my notes.
can't get past confessions.
And, Andrew Baldwin told the judge
Very
that
likely.
they were waiting
Yeah,
for
juries
Kathy Allen and
juries
members
can't
of
get
Richard
past
Allen.
confessions is a very sharp observation.
Judge said, despite my directive to be less than 10 minutes away, she said the jury has reached a verdict. When can we expect them? Andrew Baldwin replied they were on their way up. They entered the room at about 2:14. At 2:15, the jury, or rather 2:19, the jury entered. You could not tell from the looks on their faces. They did not make eye contact with Richard Allen or either family members of the victims, Abby and Libby, or Richard Allen's family. They came in, they sat down.
Memento, it's just
They
that
looked
easy.
weary.
You don't
And again,
understand the first thing
room
you're
was
talking about, man.
Absolutely quiet. The judge had admonished the crowd not to have any outbursts, that regardless of what the verdict was going to be, there were going to be people who were going to be unhappy with it. She said you can take your unhappiness outside of the courthouse. Again, this jury finding Richard Allen guilty on all 4 counts of murder that he was facing after about 18 hours of deliberations over 4 days, Vinny.
So at the moment he's found guilty, everyone admonished not to say anything, not to react. What did you notice anything in the courtroom? Anything from
It's easy, don't talk without a lawyer.
a family member?
Are you really just that stupid?
So his
Are you
wife
seriously that
and
stupid?
Mother, his wife Kathy and his mother Janice began
Please don't be that
sobbing.
stupid.
The people who were sitting around them hugged them, held them. They were audibly sobbing through most of the proceeding once that verdict was announced. There were members of Abby and Libby's family that were crying. There were others that just remained rather stone-faced.
Well, we'll mute that while we'll talk. While we talk a little bit about it. So, for someone who asked in chat, strictly speaking, no, you can't be found guilty of both intentional and felony murder. They're alternate theories of the crime. So any sentence would merge. They'd be served consecutively. So it's like we're charging you murder multiple different ways. And that's pretty common. Like, is it murder for this reason, or is it murder for this reason, or is it murder for this reason, or is it murder for this reason, right? So is it murder because he intended the murder? Is it murder because he was trying to do the murder? Or is it murder because there was death in furtherance of a felony? In this case, kidnapping. And like, which of these theories do you like, jury? And the jury's like, well, we like both those theories very much. Those are both great. And it's like, okay. So any sentence, so you can't be convicted twice of the same crime. You can't be convicted twice of the same crime. That's double jeopardy. That's a no-no. So as a result of that, any sentence with respect to the intentional murder and the felony murder would be served concurrently. They would have to be. They can't be served consecutively. Now, with respect to the different murders, they can, right? With respect to murder 1 versus murder 2, I killed girl 1 versus I killed girl 2. Now they could be consecutive. which I imagine they probably will be. So you're probably looking for back-to-back life sentences, I would imagine is probably the right result. Concurrently, I might have said it the wrong way around. I flip it around in my head a lot. If I said it the wrong way around, I apologize. Concurrently. They'd have to be served at the same time concurrently. I might have said it the wrong way around. I apologize. I do that a lot. It's a failing of mine. I'm sorry. So yes, they would have to be served concurrently because they are the same at the same time. So sorry if I said it the wrong way around. I do that sometimes. My bad. Yeah. Now I think what someone else said in chat is fundamentally right. I think juries can't have a really tough time looking past confessions. And like people falsely confess all the time. People say all kinds of shit all the time. Even when they're not responsible at all, people say all kinds of shit. People say all kinds of shit. When you put people under stress, you know, that shit starts coming out of their mouth. But juries eat it up, man. They eat it up. And like because every jury is under apparently the impression I'd never falsely confess. I'd never falsely confess. You totally would though. You absolutely would. You're a fucking idiot. You don't think you would, but you 100% would. You totally would. I'd never confess. Yes, you would. It happens all the time. All right, but this, you know, you can't tell juries that. You can't tell juries that. So yeah. Plus, there's a 5% base chance, as I said, that you convict them just because they're sitting at the defense table. There's always a 5% chance they convict just because they're sitting at a defense table. Plus, in the case of 2 murders in the event of children, it's like, you know, well, we got to convict somebody. Two kids are dead. Two children are dead. Do you want to let them get away with it? Who's they? Doesn't really matter who they is. This guy's convenient, you know, so let's blame him. There's definitely those factors in play. So I'm not really in a great position to like agree or disagree with the jury. Maybe there was enough evidence to beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't know because I didn't see the thing. Based on Andrea's reporting, and I trust Andrea because she's a very, very smart person, you know, there seemed to be a lot of holes in it. And the confession also seemed to be very suspect. Plus the lead detective seemed to fall apart on the stand. So there seemed to be problems. So based on Andrea's reporting, that I would be like, you know, this doesn't make sense. But, you know, well, the jury does what juries do. So that's it, man. Andrea is incredibly smart. She's incredibly smart. Yeah. Plus, she's a very good note taker. Her attention to detail is really, really good. Yeah. And she takes copious notes, something I'm not really great at. Sentencing on December 20th, I think they said. The sentence will be back-to-back life sentences, I'm pretty confident. It's 2 murders of 2 children. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what the sentence is going to be. It's going to be back-to-back life sentences. That's the answer. Spoiler alert. So yeah. He may well have done it. He may well have done it. I don't know. I'm not in a position to independently evaluate because I didn't see the thing. And there's not enough information for me to evaluate. Why can't we tell juries that false confessions happen all the time? You can. You can. People get up there and expert witnesses will get up there and tell them that, but juries just don't believe it. Yeah, you can get up there and try to be like, you know, you can try to explain it, but juries just don't believe it. They just don't believe it. So, you know. Andrea's going to assist with the appeal? Maybe. I mean, that's her specialty. I mean, she's a lawyer in a different state, but I imagine those skills would transfer over with relative ease. Enough commonality. Shouldn't be too much a problem. I'm sure Andrea can get up to speed. So if Andrea wants to help with the appeal, yeah, she's probably in a position where she could do that. She does criminal appeals. It's her job. And, you know, she can figure out the idiosyncrasies of the state law relatively easy. Should be very manageable. Rulings that favor the state? Maybe. I'm just waiting to see if there's a press conference of some kind is what I'm waiting for at this point. Because if the parties are going to talk to the press, then I'd like to hear that. Andrea should be admonished. Fuck you. Go to timeout land. Think about what you said and be better. Fuck you. Is the verdict going to be happening at Denny's? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. You try being, I mean, police put pressure on you, man. Plus, I believe they use the Reed technique. Because I remember Andrea mentioning about Reed, the Reed technique. The Reed is old school. I think I've got the Reed manual on my desk somewhere. Let me see and see if I still have it. Hold on one second. I think I still have the Reed manual on my bookshelf. Let me see if I do. I might have given it away, but let's see. Here it is. Here it is. Here's my copy. Not necessarily the most up-to-date copy, but here's my copy. Criminal Interrogations and Confessions, 14th edition. And the name you're looking for is the second name right there. Reed. Criminal Interrogations Confessions, 4th edition, presents techniques that are based on actual criminal cases and have been used successfully by thousands of criminal investigators. This practical step-by-step text is built around basic psychological principles and examines interrogations as a 9-step process that's easily understood. You better believe it, man. So this is basically a how-to on do criminal interrogation step to step. And so it's a very old school technique that has been heavily criticized for prompting false confessions. But if you're interested in the source material, here you go. This is the source material. How's the workout going? I worked out today. I posted today. The workout went well. Thank you for asking. I was feeling a little bit nauseous from my workout, but I'm feeling better now. I might have overdone it a little bit on leg press. I was feeling kind of warm and overheated, but I feel better now. Thank you for asking. We're still kicking ass in the gym though. So hey, one step at a time. The guy falsely confessed. Well, whether or not he falsely confessed or not is unclear. I don't know whether or not he falsely confessed or not. I will say the circumstances of his confession appear to be suspect. And there appears to have been pressure put on him that appears to render the confession perhaps less than fully trustworthy. But whether it's a false confession, I don't know. I would say that it's questionably trustworthy. I mean, the jury implicitly concluded that he testified truthfully because they found him guilty. Right? So they found him guilty. So the jury implicitly finds the confession to be accurate because he said he did it and the jury said he did it. Therefore, the confession isn't false, at least according to the jury. So, there's that. Yeah, he confessed to killing his grandkids, but he doesn't have grandkids. Yeah. He said a lot of things. If you put enough pressure under somebody, they'll say anything. This is why torture, for example, is not necessarily a reliable method of extracting information. Because when you torture people, they have a tendency to say anything to make this pain stop. So this is why torture is pragmatically bad as opposed to ethically bad. Like, you know why torture is ethically bad, but putting aside the ethics, why it's pragmatically bad is because people will say all kinds of shit and then you get unreliable shit. So it's not a very accurate way of getting accurate information. So it doesn't even make pragmatic sense. And, torture is obviously like the most extreme thing, but you can do, between, it's some sort of continuum, right? I mean, between like sitting comfortably and torture, there's a continuum. And, you put pressure on people, and the more pressure you put on them, the more likely it is that they're going to say shit to make it stop. So there's that problem. He wasn't being tortured strictly at the time he confessed. No, that wasn't my point. My point wasn't that he was being tortured in the legal sense. My point is that there's a continuum, and it was closer to that than is perhaps comfortable. If we're looking for a threshold of when does it become torture, we're arguably closer to that than is necessarily comfortable. So that was my point. How can you be charged with guilty of felony murder and intentional murder? That part's easy. That part's legally easy because it's just murder by different theories of the crime. It's like, is it murder for this reason, murder for this reason, or murder for this reason? Yeah, that part's not unusual. We've seen cases where people were charged with murder, I think 4 or 5 different ways. In the Ahmaud Arbery case in Georgia, where they chased down that black kid, they were charged with murder, I think 4 different ways. Like, is it intentional murder, or is it felony murder, or was it kidnapping murder, or was it this murder, or was it that murder? Which of these theories do you like best, jury? And they didn't convict all of them with respect to all those counts, which I think was correct, actually. Based on the evidence that was presented, I think the jury actually got it right. So I think with like respect to one of them, they convicted on everything. But with respect to like one of the other ones, they like didn't convict on one, and one of the other ones they didn't convict on 2 of them. But it doesn't really matter because you're still guilty of murder. The prosecutor says, which of these 4 ways do you like? And they said, well, as to this guy, we like 4 ways. As to this guy, we only like 3 of the ways. As to this guy, we only like 2 of the ways. I'm like, okay, well, it's still a murder for those 2 reasons. So, cool. But yeah, it's just different theories of the crime. That part's easy enough. That part's legally no problem. It's the same principle for lesser included, by the way. It's the same idea. It's like, oh, do you like murder, or do you like voluntary manslaughter, or do you like involuntary manslaughter? It's like, which of these theories of the crime do you like best, jury? So yeah. Still waiting to see if there's a press conference of some kind. He may be innocent. The evidence as reported from secondhand sources seems to call into question the guilty verdict. But since we can't see the thing, it makes it really hard to assess, which is annoying. I don't know what I think because I can't see enough to know what I think. Right? And there is not enough information, at least that I've seen in the public sphere, for me to render an opinion. That's not always necessarily true. Sometimes there is enough information in the public sphere for me to render an opinion, but not on this occasion. It's like there's not enough information in the public sphere for me to render an opinion. So I was like, well, I don't know. I don't know what I think. Yeah, reasonable doubt, of course, is the standard at the end of the day, right? I mean, reasonable doubt is the standard. So it's like you can think he did it and still think there's reasonable doubt. Those aren't necessarily mutually exclusive too. Although, good luck actually getting a jury to do that. But, in reality, but in principle, you can think he did it and also think there's reasonable doubt because those are not the same thing. Right? I think he did it, but I also don't think the state proved it. Okay. You can think those things at the same time. Have I seen Nick's latest tweets? I saw the one I saw the one where a guy said he's been sober for a year. And Nick said, I hope you die from it. Which doesn't even make sense. If anyone can explain that to me, let me know. I don't get it. How do you die from being sober? I'm confused. Yeah. Can you explain reasonable doubt to you? Sure. Reasonable doubt is the doubt you use in your most serious affairs, the doubt you would use in your most important and serious affairs, the level of certainty you would need to make the most important decisions in your life. Traditionally, the decision to get married would be put into this camp, although with half marriages ending in divorce, maybe we need a better example, lol. But, you know, something of that scale. Like, how sure do you need to be to, like, I don't know, buy a home? How sure do you need to be to move across the country for a new job? How sure do you need to be to get married, at least in principle? That kind of thing. Like, that's reasonable doubt. Like, you know, you're making a fairly consequential life decision. It's like, how sure do you need to be? Reasonable doubt is basically, that's what reasonable doubt is, pragmatically. You die via relapse on a major binge? Well, okay. Still, though, it didn't really make sense. I've been sober for a year. I hope you die from it. Okay. Well, yeah, that didn't make sense to me. How how sure should you be when you vote for president? Lol. What's this guy saying?
Sentencing. So with that, that's all that we're going to be able to say at this time. So thank you very much.
Investigates, a live streamer on YouTube who also has been covering this case from day one. What I want to play for everyone is someone, a representative of the Indiana State Police, came out in front of the courthouse and spoke just moments ago because we're trying to get some reaction from the folks connected to the case. Let's take a listen.
So obviously everybody has already got the news of the verdict. With that being said, Judge Gull has not lifted the gag order, so we're not going to be able to make any type of public statement at this point. We'll be looking forward to having something scheduled a month from now following sentencing. So with that, that's all that we're going to be able to say at this time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so the writing's on the wall. If the gag order's in effect, they're not going to speak. They're not going to violate the judge's orders. Why?
Very quickly.
Well, if there's a gag order, then that's going to kind of preclude any press conference, I guess. Makes sense. Of course, she keeps everyone gagged. That's why she could cover her biases, maybe. Why is there a gag order after the verdict? Good question. The gag order presumably doesn't apply to the jury, but does apply to the parties. So maybe we'll hear from a juror. I'm not sure you can gag a juror after the case is over. You can with a grand jury, but I'm not sure you can with a petit jury. I'm not sure you can continue to gag a petit jury after they're done with their service. I'm not sure that would be constitutional. I'm not, yeah. So presumably you could hear from a member of the jury, but I don't know whether or not anyone of them want to speak. Didn't they do that on the Amber Heard jury? No. They kept their names out of the press, but there was nothing barring the jurors themselves from releasing it. No. The court said, I'm going to seal the names for a year, but the order didn't apply to the jurors themselves. The jurors were free to talk to anyone they wanted. Didn't they do that with the Karen Reed trial? No. No. No, no, no. Those jurors are free to talk about it if they want, and some of them did, and some of them said we voted not guilty, and there's been a whole thing about it as a result. But no one's trying to punish the jurors. There hasn't even been a suggestion of punishing the jurors because they talked about it because there's no gag order. Yeah. Don't jurors get gagged until sentencing sometimes? If the jury themselves is doing sentencing, then I guess, but usually in that case, sentencing happens immediately. So you wouldn't like send the jury home and then do sentencing later. So if the jury is doing sentencing, then sure, but the jury you would just move immediately into sentencing. That'd be like the very next thing that would happen. So no. Can he file suit for being treated like an animal? Strictly speaking, yes. To the extent that yes, he is entitled to Eighth Amendment protections as a person waiting trial. So to the extent that his rights were violated, yes, he could file a suit in principle. Good luck. The standard, by the way, is, what's it called? Conscious disregard, I believe, is the right standard. Willful disregard. You have to try pretty hard. It's happened. It happens, but you have to try pretty hard to get sued successfully as a prison. I think it's willful disregard is the right standard. So it's like, not only do you have to violate their rights, like you have to know that it's happening, and you have to choose like not to care. And that's pretty hard. So, good luck. Plus, of course, you have qualified immunity problems on top of that.
Last day where Richard Allen's family wasn't there yet with one of the attorneys.
You've seen judges' orders precluding the geofencing evidence showing 3 people who weren't Richard Allen near the sign 2 hours after the state said he left. I'm not particularly familiar with the finer details of the evidentiary picture or the basis for any particular evidentiary ruling. So, like, I'm a little reluctant to come in after the fact and be like, that does or does not make sense, as opposed to watching it at the time so that I can see the argument and reasoning. So, like, did the judge make an order to exclude certain evidence? Maybe they did. Was that a correct decision? Don't know. Right? It's like, this is the problem. It makes it really difficult for me as a legal commentator because I'm like, well, maybe that's the correct decision and maybe it's not. But without seeing it and without hearing the arguments, without understanding exactly what's being said, I can't be like, oh, that makes sense, or that doesn't make sense. It's just really annoying. Why wasn't this case eligible for death penalty? The state didn't bring it that way. I don't know. Does Indiana have the death penalty? Is it on a moratorium? I don't know. Well, I don't know. I mean, there haven't been very many executions in Indiana, so I don't know. Maybe the prosecution just decided not to do it because, they're so rare and the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. I don't know. Do you need direct evidence for a death penalty? No. It's the same standard, beyond reasonable doubt. You don't need any more evidence than you would for the underlying conviction. There's not some special standard. The nature of what evidence can be offered is different. You can usually expand the evidence in both directions. You can bring in more than you would in trial. You can bring in stuff that would be too prejudicial either way. So you can bring in things that are prejudicial that helps the defense and things that are prejudicial that helps the prosecution. But ultimately, no, you don't need any more evidence. You just need a proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And if you're in Florida, apparently you only need 8 votes. Although I'm very skeptical of that constitutional decision. I'm very skeptical of that constitutionally. Some people have been convicted on less than a unanimous verdict now on the death penalty. So I am dubious. Yeah, the death penalty's on a moratorium. Yeah, that makes sense then. It makes sense. Just that it's not worth the squeeze. So much reasonable doubt here on appeal. You can't really appeal for that reason unless it is like manifestly unfair, right? You can't appeal on the basis that the jury just got it wrong unless it is what's the correct phrase? Unless it is basically manifestly manifest weight is the right answer. Manifest weight, right? So you can't just appeal on the basis the jury got it wrong, because of course innocent till proven guilty is over now, because he was proven guilty. It just happened just now, remember? So like innocent till proven guilty is no longer a thing. He's guilty. It happened just now. So on appeal, he's guilty. It's on him to prove anything to the contrary. And you can't appeal on the basis that the jury just got it wrong unless you have a manifest weight situation. And in that kind of situation, it has to be so horribly lopsided that no reasonable jury could possibly come to the conclusion, because of course you're going to interpret everything in favor of the verdict, right? You're no longer looking for a reasonable doubt. That's over now. You're no longer looking for reasonable. You're basically looking for reasonable doubt the other way. You're basically looking for reasonable doubt that they could convict. That's basically what you're looking for, right? Reasonable doubt that they could convict. No reasonable jury could possibly come to this conclusion. It's batshit crazy. But as long as they're simply weighing the evidence, as long as there's any reasonable combination of the evidence for them to do that, you're there. And he did confess. So like, how can you possibly get to manifest weight? It doesn't work. Right? He says it's true. Now, I think you can maybe get there in some situations, but good fucking luck. Good fucking luck. So, you can't really appeal for that reason. You're going to have to look for some other legal error. Much better is evidence that was kept out that shouldn't have been, evidence that was let in that shouldn't have been, certain defenses being denied, pretrial rulings. If you can show systematic bias, although to do that, you have to show something other than merely the judge rules against you all the time. The fact that the judge rules against you all the time is not enough to prove bias. And if you think about it for 5 seconds, you would figure out why. You can do this. I believe in you. Why would the judge ruling against you all the time not necessarily be biased? You can do this. I believe in you. Why would the judge ruling against you all the time not necessarily be biased? I'm so off. I'm so off about what? Which part? Because you're wrong. Yeah, exactly. That's right. That's the right answer. Because you are in fact wrong. Right. That's the right answer. You got it. Yeah, that's the right answer. Right. If you deserve to lose, you deserve to lose. If you're wrong 100% of the time, then the judge ruling against you 100% of the time is the correct answer. Right. That's the right answer then. You got it. You're there. Yeah. Yeah, if you're correct. Exactly. If you're correct. If the umpire calls a strike every single time, maybe it is a strike every single time. If the ref says ball every single time, maybe it is a ball every single time, right? You don't know that it's biased just because of the result. You got it. You're there. You're a good chat. You're smart. You're a good chat. You got it. I'm proud of you. Chat gets a smiley sticker. Chat gets a smiley sticker. Here's your smiley sticker. You did good today. Right. You've seen judges rule for the defense even when they're wrong, just to seem unbiased. Right. But that's actually technically biased, right? If the judge is ruling for you just to seem like they're unbiased, that's technically biased. Because the judge is now ruling for you for reasons other than the purity of the decision. They're ruling for the perception of it rather than the reality of it. Yeah. The burden's on the defense to prove a Miranda violation? It is. Yeah, it is on them to prove the Miranda violation. Yeah. Is this the murder of the two girls who might have filmed the guy as he followed him? It's the one in the park in Delphi with the potential cult Odinists, whatever. Miranda says it's on the state. To prove the violation? I mean, the Miranda obligation's on the state, but to prove the violation of Miranda? That doesn't make sense. Why would the burden be on the state? I guess in so much, maybe it's a burden of production thing. Maybe like once the defense presents evidence, but they're going to have to like argue it at least in the first instance. They're going to have to present some evidence to meet their burden of production. Then maybe it shifts over to the state. Maybe that's correct. And waived voluntarily. Well, that part's on the state. That part's true. Yeah, to prove that's knowing, intelligent, and voluntary, that part's on the state. That's true. So maybe we're just talking about different things, or I misunderstood the question, or I'm just confused. Oh, Lord. Well, I think I'm going to sign off for now. I don't really have much more to say except that sucks, and he's going to jail forever. Forever. And, appeals are for losers, and his odds of winning on appeal is, pretty shit. So, yeah. Okay. Well, bye for now. I think I'm going to record something pretty soon, so I might be on a little bit later to record something. But I haven't finished the script yet. I was going to write a script about the FEMA person who got fired for saying don't go to Trump homes. That's nice. So I was planning on recording that today, so I'm going to try to record that. I might be on in about like maybe an hour, maybe a little bit more to record something. So I might see you in a little bit later. All right, for now, I hope to see you later. Bye-bye. Where's the off button?